What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be looking at the VTOMAN Jump 1000 portable power station. But before we hop into this thing, I want to share with you all a story of what I experienced this weekend, and that's basically how my house almost burnt down. So when this happened, I was still asleep. So the first thing when I woke up, all I heard was a very loud buzzing noise. So imagine your cell phone on vibrate but ringing throughout your entire house. So it was like vroom, vroom. I had no idea what was happening. It sounded like my house was being abducted by aliens. So I got up, looked around the house. Everything looked normal, but I noticed we didn't have power. And I also heard my neighbor's generator on. He has backup power. So whenever I hear that, I know it's not just me, but the whole neighborhood also doesn't have power. So I immediately knew something had to be up. So I went and looked at the back door. And the first thing I see is the power line fell. So this main line is just bouncing around and it's hitting my fence and just throwing sparks everywhere, and it looks like a really crazy thing to see. So I called 911, told them there's a fire, the power line fell, what happened and whatnot. A few moments later, the fire department shows up, but the line is still active, so they can't do anything about it. So this goes on for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. They were basically just sitting there. They couldn't do anything. There was like 5 firemen sitting in front of my house just waiting, just keeping an eye on things. I guess they're going to do what they can and hope for the best because, like I said, the line was still active. So while we're waiting, basically it's just getting worse in my yard. There's that one area where the line is touching the fence, but because the power line's on the fence, the whole fence turns to a giant conductor. It's running electricity through my entire fence. So anything coming in contact with the fence at this point is burning, and eventually it sets on fire. There's about 3 fires starting in my yard at various places, but the one that really had me worried the most was in back of my house. There was a fence covering that I have there to cover the fence because the neighbors in back house had a bunch of weeds and we got tired of seeing that, so we put that fence cover up. But a small fire started right in front of that fence covering. And as soon as I saw that, that got me extremely nervous and stressed because this fence covering runs along the back side of my house and connects and comes in contact with my garage. So I was almost positive this material was going to set on fire. My whole fence was going to turn into a giant torch. And then my garage with my car in it was going to go next. And I was expecting the worst at this point. But fortunately, this material did not burn. There was nothing about being fireproof or fire resistant on their Amazon listing. But it's like a plastic material, but it didn't burn at all. It just slowly started to melt. So I was very fortunate for that. Like I said, I was expecting the worst. I'll drop a link to that product in the description as well, because if you're looking for a great covering for your fence that's not going to set on fire, that's the one you're going to get. Yeah, so about 2 hours later, the electric company finally came out. They shut off the power. Then the firemen were able to do their thing, set out all the little fires. And because of this, I had lost my electricity for 2 days because there was problems with my electrical system, as well as they needed to fix the main line and back. So that is where I am very, very thankful that I had this here. Earlier this year, we also lost power, and I didn't have this back then, so that was 4 days. We lost all of our food. It was very inconvenient. We had flashlights charging all over the place off portable power banks. Those died within a day and a half. And we just couldn't be at home because we didn't have power. And it was very, very hot. That was midsummer, and that was just real hard time to go through. But this time around, I had this here. So I was able to plug in my mini fridge in here. We moved all of our food to the mini fridge, hooked it up to this. My son was able to charge the Nintendo Switch and use that. We kept all of our devices charged. Basically, thanks to this power station, we were able to resume life as normal despite not having power. So while this was a very inconvenient situation to deal with, having this here definitely took off a lot of stress and helped us get through this a lot easier. So once we got our power back on, we did realize that we lost both of our air conditioner and our furnace because some of the electricity ran through a wire that was near the fence, and that shot into our basement, into our furnace. And then the other half, it shot to the air conditioner, and it basically started a fire both ways, fried up all the inside. So thankfully, there wasn't much other damage in the house. There was also an outlet outside that got fried as well. But we already started the insurance claim. Hopefully that goes smoothly and we can get everything back to normal. Right now in Chicago, the temperature isn't that bad. So even though we don't have a heater right now, with space heaters in the house, it hasn't been that bad. So it's kind of an odd situation that I went online researching these because I didn't want to deal with another bad situation where life was very inconvenient after a power outage. So I picked up this, and less than 2 weeks later, I lose my power, and this was there to do what I needed it to do. So for me personally, my investment is already paid off with this. I'm really happy I got it, and I just wanted to share with you guys a real life situation of where it can really come in handy. So now that we got that out of the way, thanks for listening. Now we'll go ahead and dive in to the overview, specs, and everything about this here power station. I don't have the box here with me now as I've already been using this for a few days, but it did come very nicely packed. It was a nice box. It was packed in very well with styrofoam, no chance of being damaged. Inside the box, you get the VTOMAN power station itself, and then you also get this nice carrying bag which has all the cords and accessories inside. So this has a nice zipper on it. Once you open this up, this has the power brick, a whole bunch of different adapters to hook up whatever you want to this, power cable, car charging cable, and then they also include two USB-C cables. One is a USB-C to USB-C, and the other one is a USB-A to C cable. I also picked up their VTOMAN solar panel, which is a folding 100-watt panel. It feels like very good quality. It's covered in a fabric, but it's actually a waterproof fabric, which I did get to test as well, because on the second day, I was charging this outside and it started to rain. I took the panel in a few hours later and it just felt very dry to the touch, as if it never got wet, so that worked really well. In back of the solar panel, you also have a small pouch that's there to protect electronics and store the cable. But you also have a USB-A and a USB-C port, so if you wanted to skip the power station, you could also just take the solar panel outside and use that to charge your devices or your phones or whatever you're using outside that has USB ports on it. So it's a pretty cool feature to have that's included with the panel. Coming back to the unit itself, this is a LiFePO4 unit. So a lot of models of these are lithium batteries, but the LiFePO4 is a newer technology, and the batteries last 4 to 5 times longer than lithium. So this one here is rated for 3,100 cycles before it falls below 80% capacity. So that's 8.5 years where this is gonna operate at 80% or more. Beyond that, it's still gonna be usable, but it's not gonna be as large of capacity, but it's just gonna drop down over time slowly. So you're gonna get a good 12 to 15 years out of this before it probably becomes unusable. So that's a long time for a battery to last. Looking at the front of the unit, I really love how many ports they include on this power station. So coming over here in the top left, you have your input sockets. So over here, you can plug in your home charger, or you can plug in two 100-watt solar panels for a total of 200 watts charging power. Down here, you have a car charger output, as well as two barrel connectors on the DC side. Over here, you have two USB-C outputs. What I love about this is a lot of power stations and power banks include USB-C, but typically they're a 18-watt or 30-watt. These are 100 watts, which is very good for USB-C. And this is going to let you charge any high-powered devices you have and do it very quickly. Coming down here, you have 4 USB-A ports. One of these is Quick Charge 3.0, and the other 3 are 5 volts, 2.4 amps. Then over here, you have your 3 receptacles for AC power. And up here is something that makes this power station pretty unique. Here is a battery jump cable port. So you can buy an additional accessory to hook up here, hook this up to your car battery, and this will jump your car, which is not something I've seen on any other power station. And over here, this port here is to hook up an additional battery. They sell expansion packs for this. So there's another unit that has I believe it's about 1,500 watt hours, and that hooks up to this one, and that'll basically double your capacity from 1,400 to a little over 3,000 watt hours total. So that's a whole lot of extra backup power. Last but not least, this power station also has a built-in flashlight on the back of it. Very simple, just click the button to turn it on. This has a low mode, medium mode, high mode, strobe mode, and then a slower blinking, kind of like a SOS mode as well. I didn't use that flashlight since I have other lights in the house, but if you're outside camping or something, I can see where that'll become very useful. So when I first got this unit, the first thing I did was take it outside, hook it up to the solar panel to get some free charge into it. It was a good, pretty sunny day, so I was able to get 73 watts going in from the solar panel. Unfortunately, right after I set it up, closed the garage, I went on a bike ride with my wife. I guess I didn't set up the solar panel correctly, and then when I got back, the solar panel was on the floor. It was a pretty windy day, so it blew it over. So that was a whole good 2-3 hours wasted, and I didn't get hardly any charge. Fortunately, the next day was pretty sunny, so I was able to charge it up to 100%, no problem with the solar panel. So I don't have any fancy battery testing gizmos or anything like that, so I figured the best way to test this would be to hook up regular everyday items that we all use and see how many charges we can get out of this capacity here. So the first thing I hooked up was a Samsung tablet. This is the Tab S7 with a 8,000 milliamp battery. This charged at 15 watts. From 0 to 100, it used 3% of this battery's capacity total. So you can charge that tablet 33.3 times with this power station. Next thing I did was hook up a Samsung A02s phone. This has a 5,000 milliamp battery. This charged at 8 watts. Use 2%, so you can charge that phone 50 times with this power station. Next, I hooked up a Nintendo Switch. This has a 3,570 milliamp battery. This charged at 10 watts at first, but shortly after that, it jumped to 18 watts for the rest of the charge. This also used 2%, so that's a total of 50 charges. Next, I hooked up my wife's hair styler machine. This is a hair styler / blow dryer combo. I ran this for 5 minutes. At startup, it peaked at 1,100 watts, but continuously it hovered somewhere around 950 watts. With the battery amount that it used within those 5 minutes, based on my calculations, you'll get 84 minutes of usage with that Dyson hairstyler or a similar item that runs at that similar wattage. So lastly, I plugged in my mini fridge that I have down in my basement. This is like your typical size mini fridge that most people have for drinks, beer, wine, whatever. I did unplug this so the temp was able to rise. That way when I plugged it back in, it was operating at its higher wattage instead of just sitting idle and maintaining the temp. So on average, the fridge used about 90 watts. After 7 minutes, it only wasted 1%. So if we do the math, this will be able to run that fridge for 11.5 hours. Periodically, it did peak and go up to 340 watts, but then when it got back to temp, it also sat idle around 10 watts. So it really fluctuates. So chances are, due to the fluctuation of going high and lower, you're most likely going to get more than 11 hours. I would say maybe 15 to 20 hours because it's not really going to be running much watts. It just periodically turns on and then turns back off once it reaches temp. This power station also calculates how much time that it has left based on what you have plugged into it. So right here, you'll see it says hours, and based on how many watts it feels it's drawing, it'll let you know approximately how long you can run that item if it stays at that wattage. One of the other reasons why I purchased this is really going to save me a lot of money in the long run from charging my e-bikes. E-bikes carry quite a large capacity in their batteries, anywhere from 10 amp hours on average to 20 amp hours on a more longer range bike. And over time, that's going to add up. Maybe not much, maybe 30, 40 bucks a year, but I'm starting to accumulate more bikes. So more bikes, more batteries, more cost on my bill. With this, I can just hook it up to the solar panel, let this get charged, go ahead and hook this up to my bike, and I get to charge my bike for free. With the capacity this has, you're going to be able to charge the average e-bike battery anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 times, depending on the capacity. I know some of you out there get nervous about having e-bike batteries in your house. In this case, this is about 3 or 4 e-bike batteries, but rest assured you don't have much to worry about. This does have a lot of internal protection built in. There's overheating protection, short protection, a few others I can't remember at this time, but I'll go ahead and throw up a list on the screen so you can take a look at those as well. Off the bat, I already know there's going to be a lot of you out there that are going to ask, why spend money on this when you can get a gas generator that's going to put out more wattage and cost a lot less? I did look into gas generators, but for me, they seem pretty inconvenient. I don't have anywhere in my yard to store it. I don't want to worry about maintaining it. And what I didn't really like is that's going to sit there unused until I have a power outage, because those things are loud. When they're running, just a real loud noise in your yard. So I'm not going to just turn it on at any time to use it. It's only going to be used once, twice a year at most. With this, I get to use it every single day if I want to, and I get to use it to cut down power usage from everyday items, my e-bikes, and still use it in a power outage. So overall, I think this is a lot more convenient to have versus gas generators. So overall, I really like this unit, but there is two very small cons I would point out. One would be I wish this had a cover on it. I don't like how exposed this is. Right now I have a baby niece that comes over once or twice a week, and she's not one yet, but soon she's gonna get in that age where, like a normal kid, she's gonna stick anything anywhere, and that hole is just asking for a crayon to be shoved in there or something. So I really wish this had a cover just to have a little sense of protection in there. So the second thing isn't really a con, but I figured I'd point it out anyways. This unit weighs 38 pounds, so if you're looking for something light and portable, this may not be for you. This is a pretty small and portable unit, so you can move it around and place it just about anywhere. But if you are someone that doesn't have much strength or you're older, this may not be the best option as it is a bit heavy to move around. If you're looking for something lighter, they do have other models that weigh less, but those have less capacity. So more capacity, you get more weight. So it really just depends on really what you're looking for and what you plan to do with this. Overall, this power station is a very great value, especially at this capacity and features. Its competitors cost several hundreds more. Typically, when you get a lower price, it usually includes cheaper build components, less features, but this one has it all. They didn't seem to cut corners anywhere. Somehow they were able to keep it at a great price as well, especially when you consider this is a LiFePO4 battery station. All right, well, that about wraps up this video. As usual, if you guys have any questions at all, please drop me a comment. I'll do what I can to help you. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.